Welcome back to our channel. In the previous episode, we traveled together across all of Europe, from the Iberian Peninsula to the frozen forests of the north, getting to know each culture that inhabited the continent in the period of 1000 before Christ. If you haven't seen that incredible episode yet, go check out our playlist to see what you missed and then come back here. Some of the cultures we saw in the last episode continue living in the same way, as you can observe on our map today. The Proto-Germanic peoples continue maintaining their traditions, developing weapons with iron and emphasizing values like fidelity, very present in marriages and among warriors with their powerful chiefs. Peoples such as the Celto-Ligurians and the Lausitz culture underwent small transformations, mainly due to migrations, the fusion of some peoples and territorial losses. The Celts of the Urnfields culture, for example, expand into ever more distant territories, reaching as far as the coast of the Mediterranean Sea. Still, there are major changes happening on the continent, especially in the Mediterranean. Around the year 1000 before Christ, the region that would later be known as Macedonia was still inhabited by Proto-Greek tribes and Indo-European groups that lived in the mountainous and fertile lands north of classical Greece, near Mount Olympus and the Haliacmon River. These peoples, ancestors of the Macedonians, led a simple life based on agriculture, herding, and small semi-nomadic communities. It was only from approximately 700 before Christ that the people who called themselves Macedonian began an important migratory movement eastward, leaving their homeland on the banks of the Haliacmon River and starting to settle in the region that would give rise to the future kingdom. At that time, there was still no unified kingdom, as we will see centuries later, but the foundations of the dynasties were already emerging that, much later, would lead to the rise of figures like Philip II and Alexander the Great. Now we arrive at the period of the Greek polis, which flourished between the 8th and 4th centuries before Christ, marking an era of innovation and autonomy in ancient Greece, where independent city-states, known as polis, became the heart of Hellenic civilization. Each polis functioned as a sovereign political unit, with its own constitution, army, and protector gods, often centered on a fortified acropolis that served both as a refuge and a religious center. This structure fostered a spirit of competition and experimentation, leading to remarkable advances in philosophy, art, and science. Thinkers like Socrates and Plato debated ideas in bustling agoras, while sculptors created masterpieces such as the statues of the Parthenon. However, the polis were also marked by intense rivalries, culminating in wars like the Peloponnesian War, which exposed the fragilities of this political fragmentation, but at the same time propelled the cultural legacy that would influence the Western world for millennia. Athens emerged as the epitome of the innovative polis, known for inventing direct democracy in the 5th century before Christ, under leaders like Pericles, where free citizens, excluding women, slaves and foreigners, could vote in popular assemblies in the agora, deciding everything from laws to wars. This vibrant city, protected by the goddess Athena, whose magnificent temple in the Parthenon symbolized its glory, prospered thanks to maritime trade, and the silver from the Laurion mines, financing a powerful naval fleet that dominated the Aegean Sea during the Delian League. Culturally, Athens was a beacon of intellectualism. It hosted the theater of Aeschylus and Sophocles, where tragedies explored human dilemmas, and academies that questioned reality, such as that of Aristotle. Despite its emphasis on freedom and rhetoric, Athens faced internal contradictions, such as dependence on slaves, which eventually contributed to its decline after military defeats. In many cases, men with debts became slaves to pay what they owed. Sparta, in contrast, was a militaristic polis, shaped by a rigorous system of education and discipline known as the agoge, where boys were trained from the age of 7 to become invincible hoplites, prioritizing collective obedience over individualism. Governed by 2 kings and a council of elders, Spartan society was stratified. The full citizens called Spartiates dedicated themselves exclusively to war, supported by enslaved helots who cultivated the land, creating constant tension from rebellions. Its phalanx of warriors, armed with long spears and round shields, proved its effectiveness in battles like Thermopylae, where 300 Spartans led by Leonidas heroically resisted the Persians. Its culture was less focused on the arts, emphasizing survival and expansion in the Peloponnese, making it a feared but isolated power in an increasingly diverse Greek world. From the 8th century before Christ, the Greeks began an intense process of colonization in southern Italy, a region that the Romans would later call Magna Graecia, or Great Greece, due to its prosperity and strong Hellenic character. Motivated by the scarcity of arable land in mainland Greece, social tensions, and the search for new trade routes, peoples from various polis, such as Euboeans, Achaeans, Spartans, Corinthians, and Chalcidians, founded independent cities along the coasts of Campania, Lucania, Bruttium, Apulia, and Sicily. The first colonies, such as Cumae around 750 before Christ, and Pithecusae on the island of Ischia, paved the way for an impressive network of prosperous polis, including Neapolis, which is modern Naples, Tarentum founded by Spartans, Croton, Sybaris famous for its luxury and wealth, Metapontum, and Rhegium. These colonies were not mere extensions of Greece, but vibrant centers that blended Hellenic culture with local influences, adopting Doric temple architecture, the system of autonomous polis, and intense maritime trade. These cities flourished thanks to fertile lands, the production of grains, olive oil, wine, and wool, and their strategic position at the crossroads of routes between Greeks, Etruscans, and Phoenicians. Many surpassed in wealth and sophistication some polis of mainland Greece, hosting philosophers like Pythagoras in Croton, sculptors, and victorious Olympic athletes. Magnificent ruins still testify to this greatness, such as the temples of Poseidonia, better known as Paestum, preserved in excellent condition. The Greek influence in Italy was so profound that it shaped local culture, Hellenizing indigenous peoples and leaving a legacy that Rome would later absorb and spread throughout the world. Moving westward between the 9th and 6th centuries before Christ, the south of the Iberian Peninsula was the stage for one of the most enigmatic and prosperous civilizations of the Iron Age, the Kingdom of Tartessos, centered in the valley of the Guadalquivir River formerly called Tartessos, and extending through present-day Andalusia. Described by the ancient Greeks as a legendary land of immense wealth, Tartessos prospered thanks to the abundance of precious metals, such as gold, silver, copper, and especially tin, essential for bronze production, extracted from its mines and transported by rivers to the sea. This wealth attracted intense trade contacts with the Phoenicians, who established nearby colonies, such as Gator, from the 8th century before Christ, and with Greek merchants, introducing Eastern influences in art, metallurgy, and possibly writing, with the Tartessian alphabet, still poorly deciphered. The only king known from ancient sources is Arganthonios, considered the Man of Silver, who is said to have reigned for decades. Herodotus mentions up to 80 years. Impressive treasures, such as the famous Tesoro del Carambiolello, discovered in 1958 near Seville, reveal sophisticated jewelry, like gold necklaces with Egyptian scarab seals and figures of mythological animals. Now let us explore the mysteries surrounding the creation of Rome. Around the year 1000 before Christ, there was still no unified city called Rome. What existed were semi-independent rural communities that gradually began to unite around strategic defensive positions and the Tiber River, facilitating trade. Roman tradition, recorded centuries later, attributes the official founding of the city to the twins Romulus and Remus in 753 before Christ, with Romulus killing his brother and becoming the first king after being raised by a she-wolf, the famous Capitoline wolf. This legend, full of mythological elements such as descent from the god Mars and connection to the fall of Troy via Aeneas, reflects the later Romans' desire to give their city a heroic and divine origin. Archaeology confirms that around 800 and 750 before Christ, there was a process of unification and accelerated growth in these villages, with the first walls on the Palatine and imported pottery, marking the gradual birth of what would become Rome, but all this was still a modest proto-city, far from the imperial greatness that would emerge later. Thus, until about 700 before Christ, Rome was merely the promising result of the fusion of Latin villages, influenced by Etruscans and Greeks, preparing the ground for the period of kings that would follow. With this, we come to the end of our journey through Europe in the period of 700 before Christ, a continent in constant growth, with the emergence of new ways of thinking, rivalries between cities, and peoples in constant internal migrations. Give us credibility, leave your like, share the video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on the bell so you don't miss the next chapter in the history of Europe. See you in the next episode.